This is the young professor Matt Grafer, and you're watching the new Legends on Deck podcast with your hosts, Brian Koss and David Conde.
Welcome to episode 26 of the Legends on Deck podcast. I'm Brian Koss with my co-host David Conde. And today our special guest is Joe Massoni of Amazing Sports Cards. I met Joe at the Orlando Card Show back in Apopka, Florida back in December. And Joe and I talked for a while. We hung out at his table quite a bit, my son and I, and my friend Adam Bates. The three of us kind of hung out and talked baseball with Joe for a while, and I got to learn about Joe and the type of collection of not just cards that he has, but memorabilia and his passion for baseball particularly. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Welcome to my home, but what I refer to as Cooperstown South. You guys might want to come check this place out before I start putting a turnstile at the front door and charging admission. That's coming around the corner, so I'll let you guys get in for free now. Okay.
Legends on Deck just may need a sneak peek, and then we kind of put the story out, and then at that point, then you go crazy.
Hey, you know what? Sneak peeks in the background right there. Get us a nice giant Babe Ruth statue to start with. So there's a sneak peek.
I think some Yankee fans are going to be looking at it like, oh my God, I got to have that.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome, buddy. So normally we get started with asking people about their background, kind of where they grow up. Did you ever play the game? For how long? So I can throw a number of questions at you quickly, but just kind of give us a little backdrop of, where were you born, where'd you grow up, and what kind of got you, did you play any sports, and what kind of got you into that?
Okay. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I lived there till about 1977 and then moved to Florida. We grew up Mets fans. I know you guys are Mets fans. That's awesome.
I am.
Okay.
It's him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's him.
We grew up Mets fans. My dad passed a few months before I was born, so I never had that opportunity to say play catch with your dad. But I guess I was blessed to have the best mom in the world that took us all over the place and would take me to Shea Stadium when I was 6, 7 years old, 8 years old. So I think getting to go to Shea Stadium and see the Mets got me into baseball. Granted, every time you went there in the 70s, the guarantee was that they weren't going to win the game. we knew that in the 70s.
Part of the 80s too.
Well, early 80s. Now we start getting into the mid 80s. I was a happy 17, 18-year-old. You know what I mean? So that's what got me into baseball. I think, as a little kid being brought to the stadium, I just love the game. I've loved the game. It was just in my blood, it's just a passion of mine. I love the chess match of it. Somebody that looks at it and says, oh, baseball's boring. It's they don't see what a baseball fan sees. They don't see this thinking man's game between the catcher and the pitcher and the hitter. And for me, that's what makes it so interesting. It doesn't make it boring at all. It's a chess match, right? Every pitch is a chess match. As far as playing myself, I played through high school. I played with a couple of guys that made it to the pros. I don't know if you all remember Charles Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to Fort Pierce Central in high school, and he went to Fort Pierce Westwood. So we were kind of crosstown rivals. So I played a couple of years with Charles Johnson or against Charles Johnson. There's also a relief pitcher named Rusty Meacham I don't know if that name rings a bell. A little more off the radar. He played for the Royals, the Mariners, I believe the Devil Rays at the time, Tampa Bay Rays now. So yeah, I mean, I definitely played pretty much all my life. I think I still play now, but I just play on MLB The Show. A little different. Still fun.
Yeah.
It's still fun. But yeah, it's just I just love the game. I just love it.
Well, one thing you said was your childhood memory with your mom, and I can relate to that. My mother probably have a hat when I was 5 years old, of a Met hat. She introduced me to baseball herself. I mean, my dad was there. He worked a lot. He was a cop, so he was kind of busy a lot. But when they kind of separated, my mom still, like, those times, you're down and you don't know. So my mom would take us to the Shea Stadium in the 80s. And when they were horrible, we had front row seats. It didn't matter. But she introduced me to the game until the 86. And then we both went to the parade together, and it was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Having your mom, introduce you to the game, when normally, that's not normal all the time. It's normally the dad,
My mom was my world. I mean, it's as simple as that. And anybody out there that's still blessed to have their mom or their dad, they should sit down and tell them they love them, because not everybody gets that opportunity. I don't get that opportunity anymore, and I wish I could. So yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quick on that. So yeah, I think I like the story. Like, it's funny, your story and David's story kind of correlate in that your mom's got you into baseball. Just like you said, David, not something you hear a lot. That certainly wasn't my scenario. It was my dad and my grandpa. So it was kind of that traditional, like, baseball way to get into baseball. You're throwing with your dad and your grandpa, and you're playing Little League and all that. And but it's cool that there's moms out there that are getting their kids interested in the game.
Definitely. I do remember, the first time she bought me a glove, she bought me a glove for my left hand, right? So I'm out there and I'm at my first practice ever, and I'm throwing, and I'm like, this don't feel right. Like, this feels really weird. This feels really weird. Everybody in my family was right-handed. And then she was like, well, how about we get you a glove for your other hand? And I think that's when I realized, like, I was left-handed. I'm a left-handed guy, and a little bit ambidextrous. I always hit righty. A little bit of that Ricky Henderson situation of being a right-handed hitter and a left-handed thrower, which there seems to be a lot more the other way around, of a left-handed hitter and a right-handed thrower. But that's just what felt natural to me. So I knew when I got the glove on this hand, I was like, all right, this is a perfect fit.
Oh, you got the history and the memories in base of your mom and everything. When did it start with the getting into the cards and collecting cards? When did that start?
To be honest with you, David, I think that started about the same time. I mean, I try to think of my first memory of getting a pack of cards, and I'm guessing
with the hard bubble.
Oh yeah. It's probably why I have cavities now and go to the dentist every other month. So the first card I literally picture in my mind of pulling out of a pack, I think, is a 1976 Ed Kranepool, which you will appreciate. The Mets guy, Ed Kranepool, right? So the baseball cards, they started early in my life. I mean, I had an older brother that was into baseball as well. So he, probably had some cards as I was growing up, and I saw what he was doing, and I kind of wanted to emulate that. And I started collecting, and it just became a hobby, a passion, at this point, a business from there. So yeah, it started, 47 years ago.
Have any cards from then that you kept?
I mean, I do have cards from the 70s. I don't know if they're necessarily cards I kept from when I got them then, or just came back across them at other points in my life. But I do have cards from the 70s. I have cards older at this point. Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily cards I kept from then as mementos to say this was my first card I got.
No, that's cool. So when I met you, I told a little bit of the story. So I met you at the Orlando Card Show, and you were set up with a booth. And the thing that drew us in was he had these mystery packs going on. So he had these little black bags, and it said, pull this common card, and it was a note, sort of a no-namer card, and I'll give you a Griffey rookie. And so, you buy the pack, I think was like $20, and, he's like, trust me, you'll get a good return regardless.
Yeah.
Right. So, we bought, my son's like, you got to try this. So we bought a pack, we pulled out, and then we're like, oh man, there's some good stuff in here. Right. So, we pulled out some old Miguel Cabreras and things like that. So, it was fun. It was kind of like the tease to get you to stop at the table. But it was a fun gimmick that I thought we had, and then that you had going. And then from there, we kind of struck up a longer conversation just, about your, it was funny when you sit at these card shows and you meet somebody that's certainly, if you meet a real baseball person, because the card shows, they have, it's everything. You got football cards, basketball cards, hockey, gaming stuff, everything. But when you meet like a real baseball nut at there, then you can really get into stuff, right? So he started telling me, he's obviously, Joe's a historian of the game in a lot of ways, obviously with the Babe Ruth statue in the back. When I see a Babe Ruth statue, I'm the opposite. I'm like, Yankees. That doesn't really matter to me. Like, if it's the Yankees, I think like the biggest celebrity in sports history, and I think that in the number one guy that got famous as an athlete, and he's an icon. So it's like Elvis, it's the same thing. But tell me a little bit about, like, your, kind of passion for the history of the game, and how you've dug into that and how important that is for young people to get that background and that history, because baseball is a sport that's been around for over 100 years, 100 going on 150 years really, or over 150. So go ahead, I'll let you kind of weigh in on that.
First, I want to weigh in on the comments. I definitely wanted I wanted some sort of situation where, hey, this is one table where this is the only place in the card show that I'd love to get a common card,
Right.
So like you said, I wanted to play on that for sure, and get somebody to come up to the table. Tell George I said hi, by the way.
I will. I told him we were having you on. He was like, oh, really? That's cool. Yeah.
So as far as getting into the history and what got me into, I guess, being a historian of baseball, I'd say one of the main things, I mean, again, I've always just loved the game. I just feel like it was something I was born with. It was something I was born to do. It was something that was a bonding thing for my family. Right.
Yep.
So again, my brother played, I played, even one of my sisters played with the boys. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I played baseball. We were a baseball family. I think when we talk about like trying to get other people and kids involved in getting into, say, the history of baseball, one of the things that comes to my mind, you guys have probably seen it, was the Ken Burns baseball series. Right. Yep. The Ken Burns baseball series, I know it's long, but it is filled with so much incredible information and scenes and video and footage that no one's ever seen in their lives, right? Until Ken Burns put this documentary together. Not only video footage, but audio footage to hear some of these people that you've never actually heard talk, right? You've just heard about them, it's crazy, from the major leagues to the Negro League players, to dig into that and to just dig into baseball as a whole. For someone that's a baseball fan, you're mesmerized, when you're watching something like this. So, gosh, if I had any kids, I think it might be mandatory for them to have to watch this.
Yeah.
I feel like you must watch the Ken Burns, baseball. It was amazing. So I think maybe if kids saw and learned more about the history of the game itself, maybe they'd be more interested than they might be now.
Well, I think that's, I've talked to some coaches, even high school coaches, and I've asked them, like, hey, your players, like, are they like real baseball nuts? I mean, I know you got some good players on your team, but they're like, yeah, sort of. Like, they watch their feed. They watch maybe like guys hit home runs or whatever, they'll watch a highlight or two, but they're not sitting there watching, games. And I don't get the sense that a lot of these young players, even good players, have a real sense of that history of the game. And I think, like you said, the Ken Burns documentary, when I was a kid, so I grew up in late 80s, early 90s. So I would watch, remember ESPN Classic?
Yeah.
And they used to play the home run derby that I believe was from like the 50s.
Yeah.
And they had that home run derby show. And it would be
Right.
like Mickey Mantle versus Willie Mays. And it'd be like, Stan Musial versus Joe DiMaggio.
Right.
And they would interview the guys. And then they get up there and crank a bunch of homers. And they'd have this like fun, like banter about it. And I'm like, you get a feel, like you said with the documentary, for, these guys played long before, I was born. But these guys were, you got a feel for how important they were, and they were celebrities at the time, and they were a big deal.
And not only long before you were born, but long before there were multi-million-dollar contracts, right?
Yeah,
so these people were actually playing because they loved baseball, or at least a lot of them, I'm sure, were playing because they had a love for the game.
Sure.
Well,
yeah, it's just interesting.
That is that, like, I'm good friends with, let's say, Michael Tucker. Michael Tucker played many years,
Mhm.
And we do camps, and I introduce him, and the kids ask me later, did he play? I mean, they don't know, right? Before their time. Mm-hmm. But if what you were saying about, bringing back the ESPN Classics, we need more of that again. We need to show the history of the game. We need to let the kids see the greats that out there. It's not just the Trouts and I'm going,
Harper, Mookie Betts, whoever you want to,
now, who was there before them. And
sure.
I think if baseball did more of that and brought that back, I think the young generation would really see and really get to understand, because you're right, Brian, they don't, the kids nowadays, they're on TikTok, quickly.
Right. If it's, unless it's quick and instant, and they don't have the attention span for it.
Right.
I think in Florida, where we're not near, like, I'm not near a major league squad. Like, I'm the Southwest Cape, right? So I don't have the major league team right around the corner except for spring training. So a lot of kids don't get attached to the game as much as you think. They're just playing the game. So I think what you're doing with the cards and trying to bring that back, and if more kids can go to these card shows, I think they will kind of really understand that, wow, this game is a lot deeper than just the last since they were born.
Yeah, and it's awesome to talk to them about baseball. So again, like, when I met Brian and his son George, I'm like, man, this is a well-behaved kid. That right there's a fluke. I'm like, man, this kid's
most
awesome.
Of the time, yeah.
What? so at that point, I'm like, man, I definitely want to have a conversation with George about his favorite team. I obviously knew his team was the Braves. He was wearing a Braves jersey, but I wanted to talk to him about his favorite player. And obviously from there, we built this relationship of having a conversation, right? And just talking about baseball. And I think that's part of the reason why I do the shows. I mean, it's awesome to make a little residual income, but it's just as much fun to be out there conversing with people that have, similar interests, and just to be able to talk to somebody about baseball and to, I don't know, like, show them the statue, you know what I mean? Or show them some other things that maybe are a little more unique than just the random card that 10 other dealers might have here at this show,
right.
So for me, it always has to be about trying to be somewhat unique.
Well, it is those conversations, because what we were talking about with I think of baseball as a generational game, like it's passed on, and like you guys got that taste of it at Shea Stadium, where your moms took you out to the games and all that. I used to go. I grew up in Detroit, so Tiger Stadium, and you got that feel for the ballpark and that whole atmosphere, and for me, it was conversations with my dad or my grandpa, and they would tell me, my grandpa grew up in Pittsburgh, so he'd tell me about the Pirates in the 30s. And, it was like, you get this, like that, what do you want to call it? The verbal, the oral history. Oral history is the word I'm looking for. And baseball is such a game of oral history, and you need the generations of people through whether it's coaches or dads or uncles or whoever, that are going to be able to pass those stories on to kids and give them that knowledge base, so that it lives on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, you know, as we're talking and I'm just thinking about more of how much baseball means to me personally, every opening day, that should be a national holiday. Like
Yeah.
I literally take it off work every year. I'm not joking.
When
Like
I lived in Detroit, I did that. Yeah.
it's a big deal. I mean, my family would come over, whether they'd come to my house or I'd go to one of their houses. It's a party. I mean, it's
Yeah.
an exciting day for a baseball fan, right? It's our Christmas or whatever special holiday that somebody has, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is a special day in the history of my family, let's just say.
Let's talk about your business a little bit. So
Okay.
you have this interesting name, Amazing Sports Cards. And of course, I'm gonna just assume, which I'm sure I'm gonna be right, the tribute to Willie Mays. What is your current business model?
Well, the current business model right now is obviously going to shows. I've been selling on eBay for probably over 20 years. So if anybody wants to look there, they can actually go pull up Amazing Sports Card with amazing spelled AMAYSING, like Willie Mays. And then I also I do some live shows on Whatnot, which is another app to basically do breaks or sell singles or whatever you want to sell there as far as cards. Honestly, at this point, those are the avenues I typically use. Sometimes I'll put some items on Facebook Marketplace, things like that as well. But there's definitely a little more of a story behind that name than just the name, right? So, you know, they say a picture says 1,000 words, right? So let me see. I'm not trying to show off my muscles here, but let's see.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, again, even having a tattoo was something that had to be unique. It wasn't just going to be some baseball logo. It was going to be something that real baseball fans knew exactly who that was on my arm and what that was. You know, this famous 1954 World Series catch from Willie Mays. It just had to be like that's what had to be. And the gentleman that did it, he was awesome. I mean, he was so humble about his ability. And I've literally had people walk up to me, even at the show that you were at, Brian. He walked up and asked me if he could take a picture of my arm, right? I'm like, absolutely. You know what I mean? So that's like, how much more of a compliment can you get? You know, like someone's like, hey, can I take a picture of your arm? Yeah, sure. You know, it's happened multiple times when I've been at spring training games, you know, especially obviously, well, baseball fans, but, you know, I've run into particularly Giant fans that were like, are you kidding me? You know, you got a tattoo of Willie Mays on your arm. I just love it, man. It's like baseball is literally in my blood, right? It's yeah. So that's where the name. I mean, that's part of the name. It just had to be Amazing Sports Cards if you have a tattoo of Willie Mays on your body, and there it is. There it is.
You have your arm logo as part of your logo. Is your arm there with the tattoo?
Well, not my arm because I just basically put it on. I just took a picture of the picture itself. So no, I don't have the picture of my arm. I did it 1 second, but I was like, yeah, that's a little. I don't know. I couldn't deal with that. Maybe I have to lift more or something before I take a picture of my arm and put it on one of my business cards.
You know, we were just to stick with the cards and we know your model, and we're going to link to when we put up this podcast, we're going to link to your eBay page and all that.
Awesome,
and thanks for turning me on to Whatnot too. You told me about Whatnot. I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I downloaded. I'm like, dude, these guys are all, and some fancy shows going on out there too.
They are.
There's guys that got. David. They got set up so we should get for our show. They've got backdrops and they've got tables, and they're like DJing up there. It's everything. They're wild.
Serious, man. They're serious. There was a show a month or so ago that Bobby Witt Jr. was actually on.
I got an email about that from Whatnot, because I just signed up as to get their emails and updates, and Bobby Witt Jr. I guess he's a big collector.
Yeah. I didn't go into the show, but I mean that's pretty cool. You know, I mean he's an up and coming he's a pretty big star, up and coming star, you know. So that was pretty that was nice for Whatnot to be able to have a show with him on there.
Absolutely. So, you know, how do you think, you know, because you've gone, you know, grown up, you said in the mid 70s, and then you saw the 80s and you know, decades now in the market for of cards particularly, but how has the market changed from those days, the 70s, 80s era, to what the card market is today? It seems totally different to me.
The market's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I think the thing to me that makes it most insane is that a guy that has never even stepped into a batter's box in a major league game, it'll cost a fortune to get one of this guy's rookie cards, right? He's never even taken a swing in a big league game. And so it's crazy to think that these unproven commodities that have never done anything yet on a major league ball field, you have to spend more money for their card than you do for a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie who was a first ballot Hall of Famer, or a Jeter rookie who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's insane to me, that part. And then the other scary thing is, if you do spend all that money on that guy that never stepped onto a major league field and into the batter's box, the minute he does, and if he goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, instantly the market's plummeting for this guy, you know? So it is nuts how the cards have come from just being, as everybody, you know, these things you put in your bicycle spokes to things that can basically help you retire or even retire from them. That will blow most people's minds, you know?
That's a great point. Go ahead, David.
I did read something one time that, you know, like you said, it's a risk. Like Bryce Harper, you know, they bought his card, and then if he doesn't go anywhere, it's a bust. He goes, but if he does, great. So basically, I just have to find a rookie card that the assumption is he's going to be something great and become a millionaire.
Well, you know, the funny thing about that, David, is anybody where the assumption is that they're going to be great, that card's already worth so much that it's like crazy to even think that you're going to try to invest in that guy. Like, you really got to take a flyer and just take a shot with somebody that, you know, maybe isn't being talked about so much, where you just have a hunch or whatever the situation might be, because the guys that everyone thinks are going to be great, those cards are already so expensive. It's just unbelievable how much you have to pay for that guy's card.
Which card are you talking about? Like which?
Well, I'll just give you an example. Okay, let's take someone like Julio Rodriguez, right? Julio Rodriguez is a rookie of the year last year in the American League. His cards are super expensive right now. If Julio Rodriguez in 2023 has a down year, those cards are going to plummet. It's as simple as that. Like, it's all about, what have you done for me lately? You know, these guys, I talk to one of my good friends about it all the time. You look at these guys and it's like here today, gone tomorrow. Like, if they don't instantly produce, they're just put on the back burner and forgotten about until they start to produce, and everyone will start buying them again. Take Wander Franco, for example, right? Wander Franco, you know, this up and coming super duper star, comes on the scene, has a good rookie year. The last couple of years, he's done nothing. And you barely hear anyone talk about Wander Franco right now. Like, the guy is washed up. I mean, he's probably 25 years old, you know? Like, I don't think you're washed up at 25, you know what I mean? So it's, that part is, it's just crazy to me. And that's just the way the card game works. I mean, that is how it's played. It's a gamble for sure.
And yeah, that's a good point. So you're telling me the sell my Julio Rodriguez rookie cards right now.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. Listen, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not responsible for what you buy or sell at this point. Okay.
I hear you. But yeah, you know, it's interesting too, is that, you know, with the cards, you know, used to be, you know, I wish I would have thought to bring a few in front of me, but used to be, you know, the basic Topps, you know, series that would come out. You had, like, I think it was 87 that had like the wood paneling. Yeah, it might have been.
It was 87.
87, yeah. So that's because that's the one they're doing as the that in 23 this year they're doing those throwbacks, 25-year anniversary,
right,
or 35-year anniversary of it,
right,
35.
Something like that.
So, you know, you got those, like, you know, the iconic, you know, there was never too many standout cards in those right, era, that junk wax era.
Right.
It was the standard card with the guy. Maybe we get an all-star card or something like that. But today you open a pack of cards and it's like, oh my God, you've got a piece of a jersey and you've got a piece of a bat and you've got
actually gonna be
you've
talking
got
to you.
5 different kinds of shiny different refractors and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, you also have to go to your bank and ask for a loan to buy some of these packs. You know what I mean? I mean, they're incredibly expensive, you know? I mean, I'm not a guy that buys packs and opens them at all. I don't buy packs and open them. I buy, say, collections, you know. I look for value and then I make some purchases, but I don't think the value personally is in buying a pack. It's a risk, of course. I mean, granted, maybe you do buy a box for $300 and you pull a $2,000 card, you know, but I don't think your odds are really in your favor for that to happen. So I'm not typically into opening packs myself.
Yeah,
like playing the lotto.
Yeah,
very much so, very much. I mean, your odds are not in your favor, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not much, as I mentioned, I'm not much into opening and cracking boxes open, not for myself, not at all.
Yeah, I think it's this whole box breaking phase thing though that's going on. It's like I'll George and I will sit there and I'll say, hey, you want to watch a box breaking? He's like, yeah, I'll watch a box breaking. And well, you know, I can't trying to think of the type. It was a Topps black chrome or something like that. And these boxes had like 4 cards in them, and they were like, you know, $800 boxes or something.
I had purchased,
it's wild.
I had purchased a box. They came out, I think they're 2022. They were called Topps Luminaries, right?
Okay.
They have 1 card in the box, $400. $400, 1 card. That's it. You better hope you pull something good, because I mean, when you look at the value of the cards and you go on to somewhere like eBay and look at completed listings, most of them don't sell for $400.
Right.
You know, so I don't see that that's worth my risk. You know?
I think there is a gambling aspect to the box breaking, and it's kind of, you know, maybe if you're a collector and you buy into the team that you want, or you're looking for a particular player, you buy into the team, and it's kind of an entertainment value too.
Sure.
You know, and the breakers are obviously making some money on that, which, you know, and it's kind of entertaining. I haven't bought into one yet, but I've definitely watched a bunch of them. You know, we'll sit there and watch them. I haven't bought in. At some point, we'll buy in just for fun. You know, my son collects, so we're interested in I'm getting interested in it from a sales and a business standpoint as well. So it's just, it's like the balance between what do you collect versus what do you sell out there, and like you said, you're assessing value years ahead of time. And they could take a dive at any time.
It's a stock, you know what I mean? I mean, people, they really invest a lot of money in sports cards. And it's funny, you know, you talk about watching these things on Whatnot. It's you know, before, you know, people would sit there and say, oh, I watch a TV show. You know, now you're watching a box break of somebody open up cards. It's crazy. It's probably George's favorite show. You know?
It is. We love it. We're like, yeah, let's watch a box break. This is great.
It is. It's something else. And like you said, there's money to be made. I mean, again, for me, it's a residual income, you know, and it's fun, you know. And so when I start doing these shows, which, you know, I did my first show in November. That's the first show I've done probably in over about 17, 18 years since I've done a card show in person. It's the first time. And I was debating on it. You know, I'm even driving over to it with all these boxes in my car, and I'm like debating turning around, right? I'm like, I don't want to do this, you know? And I get over there, and then it's like, wow, this is awesome. You know, I am out here, I'm getting to converse with people about the love for, you know, the same things. You know, you have these things in common, right? Whether it's the cards, whether it's sports. I mean, the thing I love about sports is I don't remember where I heard it, but it's a drama where the actors and the audience don't know the ending. Yeah. Right. When you watch a movie, the people that produced it know how it's going to end. The audience doesn't. when you watch a sport, you watch a baseball game, the players don't know the end. We don't know the end. That's the most awesome drama of all, you know?
Absolutely. And that's why I can't ever record games. I like, I know people will record games. I'm like, dude, I got to know the score. Like, I got to know the score. And if I missed it, that I lost out, and I got to just check the score, and I'll look at the box score and watch the highlights.
Right.
Because I'm not waiting to go sit through something and get to the end when it's the live, nature of it. Like you said, the wild endings or the crazy things that could happen. That's so interesting.
And neither side knows the ending till the end, right? Till the very last out, till the very last pitch. We don't know what's going to happen, right? We've seen some crazy rallies, Mm-hmm. I mean, again, being a Mets fan, 1986, Game 6 of the World Series, it was so, you're so down sitting there watching this game in the 9th inning, and you're watching the Red Sox in their dugout smiling, and you're watching all this, and then this just these rinky-dink hits start rolling off the Mets bats. You get a hit from Ray Knight, and you get a hit from Kevin Mitchell, and they're just stringing together these hits. And I literally have a picture down the hall here signed by Mookie Wilson and Bill Buckner together, with the ball rolling through Buckner's legs. And I was like
signing.
I couldn't believe, I was like, it took me so long to get this picture. I don't know what I waited for. I literally have only had it maybe about 2 years. But for me, that moment in time is the most iconic baseball moment of my life. I mean, the joy of that ball rolling through his legs and the Mets winning that game when you're a Mets fan, it doesn't get any better than that.
You guys made a point earlier. You talked about the opening the boxes and everything, and Joe, you collect. You're a collector, so you kind of go after the cards that you want to collect. But I think, like, growing up for me, it was awesome to get the pack and open it up and kind of look through it and kind of see who I got, who I didn't get. And I think kids nowadays, I mean, there's so much distraction for kids, right? We talked about it earlier. They're on TikTok, or they're fast paced on their phones, so they're all over the place. So baseball has been doing so many things trying to grab their attention of the kids. And I think banana baseball, they do all this crazy circus acts on the field just to grab their attention and keep it going, because the normal game for younger kids is boring. Not for me, not for you, not for Brian. We can sit through a game and look at the thinking man's game, like we talked about. But the kids, to engage them in the game, is you have to do like circus acts pretty much. So when you think about that, and you think about baseball cards and the hobby, how do we get kids to be back? Because they're not going to be in the collectibles right away. They may start off like we did, and then eventually maybe get to the point you're at. But how do we get them to kind of just start to hone that hobby and enjoy it and try to look towards it? Because I'll say one thing. I went to Target the other day. There was a baseball box. I looked for baseball cards. I was curious. Because I remember a couple years in COVID, you couldn't find one. It was like $1 million. So I did find a box. It was $50, but it wasn't Topps. It wasn't Dunruss. I don't know what it was. I'm like, I am not paying $50 for a bunch of cards. I have no idea, because I have no idea about the cards right now. So in your opinion, what do you think we need to do to kind of bring that back, the kids back to the love of it?
It's tough, I mean, it's a tough question. I don't personally have any kids. I feel like, your point of how expensive it is to collect, it's difficult, right? I mean, it's difficult for a parent to say, oh, I'm going to drop $100 on this box of cards. Maybe some of these card distribution companies need to look at putting a very low tier type of product on the market to try to get kids to be able to afford to buy baseball cards, or have their parents feel like they could afford to buy them. I mean, it's tough for me to answer that question, how to get them more involved. I mean, I think, going to the shows, like Brian bringing George, or anyone bringing their kids, to kind of just open their eyes as to something that is maybe different from sitting at home playing their video games or going on TikTok or whatever it might be, maybe make their kid leave their phone in the car for 20 minutes, God forbid. Right? It's difficult again for me because I don't have any children. So it's a tough question for me to answer. But
you did a TikTok. What if you did a TikTok? And what if you did a TikTok with all of your stuff, and then we just kind of grew that part of it, and then we just let them see it.
First off, for me to do a TikTok, someone's gonna have to show me how, right? Like I'm old, you know what I mean? So yeah, I barely know how to get on here and do this. So I need help with that. Hey, if someone's willing to help me do it, I'm willing to look into it, and I'm willing to help kids get more interested in cards, baseball, sports in general.
Yep. Yeah, I think that I think that with the cards too, one thing that when we were younger, I used to read the box scores in the paper, and I'd watch, for my age group, we'd watch highlights on ESPN, and we'd have to watch them. You have to watch Sports Center on loop because you'd have to, see the games you missed. But, but then for the stats, you would go to the back of the card. And you'd have to look at, okay, this is what his last couple seasons looked like. And that's how you learn what, earn run average is. And that's how you learn what RBIs are and all these other statistics. It's easier now for kids to find that if they want it. Obviously, they could go on MLB.com.
We didn't have social media back then for that.
Baseball reference, all that kind of stuff. But but there's something still about going to the back of the card, to look at it, that the listing on there. And it would be good. I think I read a couple things and watched a couple videos. Fanatics has bought Topps.
Yes.
So maybe Fanatics, and I heard that Fanatics wants to invest in marketing of baseball cards. So you may see more in the next couple of years as you're watching MLB broadcasts and stuff, where they're going to promote card buying or card sell, on games, or use some of their young stars to promote cards, like a Bobby Witt that's into the hobby. So maybe growing that through, to me, the place to start with the history, with the cards, with everything, is the kids that already play baseball. There's a lot of kids out there doing a lot of different things, like you said, video games and everything else. But if you get the kids that play baseball to get into the hobby, that's your target market. It's more than just like showing up and practicing and doing that. Like, they got to love the game too. And, they're going to love it a lot more, and they're going to play a lot more if they kind of invest in their education of the history of the game and the collectible side too.
Yeah.
So my thoughts.
No, good points for sure.
No, I think maybe Major League Baseball did a little bit more commercials with the younger guys playing the game, and say, hey kids, get a baseball card and start collecting. They did more of it. I think the kids would. I think it has to be in social media. It has to be out where the kids are viewing it.
Yeah.
And like you said, bringing them to the card shows. The more card shows you can take your kid to. I mean, that's a great Father-Son Day, Mother-Son Day, Mother-Daughter Day, Father's-Daughter Day, whatever it is. That's a great opportunity to bring them there. And then, like, you have a lot of history in your table. So if they could bring them and find you, and they could see the history of the game. I mean, I always go back to that. Me and Brian talk about it a lot, how, the game is just not the way it was. If the game was more the way it was back in the day, now the way it was back in the day, I mean, there's so much rich history that we can share. It's just amazing. I mean, it's just like, you feel like social media sometimes erase the history, because they can search for it, but they're not searching for it. Mm-hmm. I think, Major League Baseball, we can just gotta get the cards back in front of the kids. It could be a hobby again. It may not be the hobby where you're at, but it can still be a hobby the kids can kind of really get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Bring the prices down a little bit on the boxes. So
they're not cheap. Yeah. They're not cheap.
No. Well, Joe, we're gonna have to see Cooperstown South sometime, I feel.
Hey, if you don't see it soon, there's going to be that
you're going to
have to pay. There's going to be an admission. There's going to be a heck of a tour. What's that?
Yeah, we'll have to ask for a media pass for sure. Yeah,
I'll give you guys a pass. Listen, believe it or not, I bought, when I bought this, one other little tidbit about this Babe Ruth standing behind me. I literally, this is going to sound a little crazy, a little corny. I literally bought a voice box that is attached to the pillar on this wall, right? On this side
Okay.
And I recorded a clip of his called shot. So that when you come in, you can press the button. This is really Cooperstown South. Okay. So you press that button and you get the history of him talking about calling the shot, whether he really did, whether he really didn't, because there's arguments on both sides as if it really happened.
Sure.
But I had to buy that little box. So, I don't know. Maybe you guys should hold off because I probably need to buy more statues and more little voice boxes.
Yeah, I think you need to invest a little more, and then we'll do a full tour and write up, and we'll video it.
Nice.
Give people the full look.
Nice. Hey, sounds good, man. Sounds good.
Well, Joe, we really appreciate you coming on today. Really great stories. When we have one thing that David and I like to do is we like to interview people that love the game and know the game from different angles, I think. And you offered us something unique in that, as somebody that has a passion for the game like we do. And we appreciate you coming on. We'll make sure we get your stuff up in our post. So make sure you send us your links for your card sales and all that too. Amazing sports cards with Willie Mays' name in the spelling in between. So, Joe Massoni, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks, guys, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, and had a lot of fun.
Yep. Last minute. So, couple of words from our sponsors. EZIP Mortgage is the sponsor of the podcast. So for all your mortgage needs, EZIP Mortgage is who you need to talk to. And also want to plug our LOD shop, which you can find on our website. Get cool hats like this, t-shirts, all kinds of cool paraphernalia for you to tell your people in your community about Legends on Deck. So,
thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
I
definitely will be visiting. Was it Fenway South? Was it called? No, Cooperstown South.
Cooperstown South.
I'll be there eventually before you open up the live for the world.
Okay, sounds good. I appreciate it again. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Episode 26.